Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out today and also for your patience as we waited here for a minute. I have everything written down because I want to keep track of time. So welcome to the Foundry. My name is Virginia Cuello. I work with Caraya LLC and I do the logistics for the Black Response. Right. We're very grateful to the Foundry for the opportunity to be part of this festival. The Foundry has been a space of growth and learning for many of us today, and we celebrate our rights to be here. That's right. Yes. As you know, this is a debate where voting will be involved. There are two ways to cast your vote. We will project a barcode and a link. If you have access to a smartphone, we encourage you to vote on your phone. There are also papers and pencils in the back that you can use if you just want to cast your vote like that. However, we do encourage you to use the smartphone because it will give us a faster turnaround. More importantly, the voting system is completely anonymous and does not collect personal information. That's very important for you to know. Other logistics, the bathrooms are out of this door to your right, and there's a water fountain there, but there's also some snacks in the back for you to enjoy if you feel like it. I will pass it out to Emmy to continue. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emmy. And welcome to the first Oxford-style debate format held by the Black Response Cambridge. Yay! An Oxford-style debate format. It's already, is this better? Okay, great. I'm getting over a cold or whatever illness is floating around. An Oxford-style debate format is when a pre-selected statement is provided to two opposing perspectives, one arguing for and the other arguing against a statement. Two opposing teams present arguments with the goal is convincing jurors to vote for their perspectives. In this instance, the jurors are you as audience members. And you all vote for or against the statement before and after the arguments have been presented during the debate. The team with the most individuals or jurors to switch to their side from where they initially started are the winners of the debate. For today's debate, the four speakers will present arguments in support or against the following statement. I'm going to read it because it's not of it. In order to address issues of crime and violence in Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities in Cambridge and beyond, we need to follow the leadership of and work in direct relationship with police and other policing institutions. Now that you've heard the statement, we'll take our first vote. This vote is to identify what is your initial response, your initial position on the statement, whether it's for or against the statement. Please either use your phone or scan the code. And there are also pen and papers in the back next to the food table. That you can also fill out. And in the meantime, we're gonna watch a quick video about the Black Response and its intention, purpose, and goals of this event and future ones as well.
Welcome to the Black Response's bi-weekly community workshops and skills fairs. These workshops will center marginalized community members to build our knowledge of abolitionist principles, practices, and non-carceral safety response strategies. We're building community capacity for collective care, mutual aid, and creating safe spaces that can grow public support for defunding the police and funding community safety alternatives. But you might be wondering, what is TBR?
The Black Response is an abolitionist research and advocacy organization that envisions and works towards building a world free of carceral and harmful responses. We seek to uplift the Black, brown, and otherwise marginalized communities in Cambridge and everywhere by working to unbundle and abolish policing, to fund the police to invest in communities, and support the building of alternatives to public safety and the development of community care initiatives. We operate as a type of nonprofit membership cooperative whereby TBR members, the core governance committee, make decisions about and for the programs and operations of the organization.
You might be wondering what abolition is. Abolition is the practice of dismantling and removing a system. When we say abolition, we seek to abolish the prison industrial complex. Prison industrial complex abolition is a political vision with the goal of eliminating imprisonment, policing, and surveillance, and creating lasting alternatives to punishment and imprisonment. The Black Response is an abolitionist organization. We operate with transformative justice principle.
Meanwhile, traditional justice models, like carceral systems, hand the problem over to the state and state experts, thinking of lawyers, judges, police, principals, whereas carceral systems ask what law or rule has been broken, who broke it, and what is the punishment. A system of transformative justice might ask what harm has been done, who has been harmed, who is responsible for the repair, what needs to happen to repair the harm, and prevent future cycles of harm from continuing.
Are you interested in learning more about transformative justice, prison industrial complex abolition, or just want to keep in touch? Go to our website, theblackresponsecambridge.com, and sign up for our quarterly newsletters.
We're just having a couple technical difficulty. So I don't know, talk. Get to know your neighbor.
I was very impressed about how you look with your phone up there and vote right. With a little thing up there. That was great. It works, yeah. My phone doesn't do this. Yeah, it worked right.
Okay, thank you for your votes. At this time, we have 12 who voted, I do not support the statement. And we have 3 neutral individuals, or 3 individuals who voted neutral. Thank you for your vote. All right, now I'm gonna introduce the speakers who will be debating the topic this evening. Now that you've heard the way the Oxford style debate works, are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions about how it works? Because I can't answer it, but Virginia will. Go ahead.
Are there people who didn't vote?
Are there any individuals who didn't vote and need assistance voting? Thank you for bringing that up. Everyone good? Okay. So you can submit your vote by scanning the QR code if you haven't had an opportunity. You can also, again, submit your vote by filling out ballots that are in the back.
There's no vote for in favor.
Yes, there are no votes in favor of the statement. Huh? We'll see after. Okay, so now we've had a moment to hear about how the debate will work. We've also had an opportunity to listen to what the Black Response is. Allow me to introduce the speakers. We are really fortunate to have individuals who are coming from Cambridge, Boston, and Texas. Our first speaker is right here from across the river. Danny Santana is with Inspiring Today's Young Adults. He spent 24 years as a gang member, and during that time, he was in and out of prison. Danny has committed to giving back to his community by actively engaging in community outreach, mentoring, and violence interventions. Danny.
How we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Next, we have Cambridge's own Stephanie Guillaume, and Stephanie is with the Black Response Cambridge. Stephanie is a longtime Canterbridgean. She currently leads TBR's efforts to examine the landscape of alternative public safety programs and links between policing, material, and welfare policy. And then we have Donnie Lee. Donnie, are you here in Boston?
Yes.
Okay. Donnie is with Justice for Housing and Boston Street Union. Donnie was deeply involved in gang activity, and his life was marked by violence, drug abuse, and brushes with the law. But after spending time in federal prison, Donnie knew he needed to make a change. We have Chaz. Chaz is joining us from down south. And he is with the Austin Justice Coalition in Austin, Texas. Under Chaz's leadership, AJC has led local reform efforts such as creating the Austin Police Department's use of force policy, successfully fighting against a faulty Austin Police Association union contract, and successfully campaigning for the reallocation of $150 million from the Austin Police Department's budget to begin the process of creating public safety alternatives to traditional public safety methods. And now we are going to begin with Danny.
How we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen?
We're doing all right, doing all right.
I must say I'm very honored to be a part of this public discussion. I sit on the city's Youth Violence Task Force where this discussion we're getting ready to have at this moment happens behind closed doors. And too many closed doors and not enough public get a chance to hear these type of discussions that we're having. I was also a victim of police brutality, where I have a lawsuit against the Boston police as we stand right now for what they did to me about 2 years ago. But with that said, I don't view police as the enemy. You know, there's a lot of good police officers who put their life out there daily, you know, for the protection of the neighborhoods that they serve and for the youth that they serve. You know, so I don't like to take away from those officers who are wonderful officers who do wonderful jobs just because there's a larger amount of rotten apples amongst that batch of apples. You know, what we need to do as a community is we need to, one, educate ourselves and educate the community and being able to talk about how the police officers are in service to us and how do we better educate them so they can better serve us. You know, one of the main objections with IT-wide is that we look to improve community relations with law enforcement. And by doing that is by allowing the youth that I mentor on a yearly basis, summer to summer, allowing them to interact with these police officers on a other basis other than them being arrested or them being questioned. One of the main focuses that we have in the task force is the discussion about the youth violence that's occurring within our school hours. The kids that are coming out of school that are taking public transportation, the lack of disrespect, the lack of family morals that are not being taught in our households nowadays, and the lack of any manual towards older senior citizens. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been on the bus and witnessed a group of young teenagers from the ages 13 to 19 who don't get up for an older lady, who won't get up for a woman that's pregnant, who won't get up for a person that's walking with a cane. You know, and it just brings me to, you know, where are our family morals gone to? You know, I remember growing up in a household where 5 o'clock was dinner time and you sat around the table and you discussed how your day went with your family, with, you know, with your aunts and uncles and family. And if you look at today's tradition of how our kids are being raised, these kids don't even know nothing about 5 o'clock dinner time and sitting at a table and discussing how your day went because they're too focused on being on their phone and being on social media. Even though social media is a wonderful thing, in a way it's kind of a hindrance to our children now because our children have become antisocial. They don't know how to communicate and they don't know how to deal with their own peers in the community because it's a lot easier to communicate through social media than it is to actually sit down and have a conversation with their next peer. So as far as the statement, do I believe that the police, we should look at them as our true leadership? No, I don't. I don't believe with that statement. However, I do believe that it takes people like me, Donnie, this brother right here, that have been through that lifestyle, that have been through certain things in our life and have made a commitment to change our life, to show that there's a different way, to show that even though we might not agree with the tactics that the police use, not all police members are bad. Not everybody that's on the force should be viewed as an enemy. And that's the problem with today. Our kids are so caught up with the anti-myth that of not snitching, that doing the right thing, stepping up and telling the right thing labels you as a snitch. But what they're not telling you is that the only people that really have to worry about those are that people who are actively involved in criminal activity. Because people who are citizens don't go to jail, right? People who are citizens do what? They get up and vote, right? They get up and they give their opinion and they let the voice be heard. So there's so many people that are coming in and out of jail that don't vote because their main thing is, oh, our voice don't count. And I used to be one of those people. You know, as a gang leader for many years, you know, I was under the conception that my opinion didn't count. So with that being said, I'm gonna pass it on to him.
Good evening. Thank you guys for all coming out. So I somewhat agree with what Brother Danny just said, as far as all apples aren't bad. We can't let one person just spoil the batch. But unfortunately, when it comes to the police, in the past, they've done that to us. They've done that to the citizens. You know what I'm saying? To where it's like, oh, one bad, okay, I'm a black kid, I'm a kid that's in trouble, da 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 da. But now this other kid that's black, similar to me, he may not be in trouble, but he's going to get held to the same things that I'm going to get held to. Why? Because of his color. But that goes back to what, you know, Danny said, one bad apple shouldn't spoil the whole batch, but unfortunately, that's what happens in reality. I want to start by saying 3 words. I'm gonna give you guys 3 definitions. Respect, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. Fear, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Gravitate, to be attracted by or to move in the direction of something or someone. Now, before I get into reading anything else, I want you guys just to say and wonder, like, when I said those 3 words, gravitate, respect, and fear, which ones really pertain to the police?
Fear.
Fear, that's one of them. Respect, they can all, I just asked you guys your opinion, and thank you, but they all come down to the police, because police don't respect everybody. People don't gravitate to the police. And guess what? When I walk outside and I leave this building, I'm in fear. Why? Because I know how the things go on. I've been there before. So it's like, you can be a citizen, but guess what happens to citizens? They fall victim to the system too, because the system's not fully correct. It's not perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. I don't know how many people believe in God, but we all fall short of his glory. So nothing can be perfect. That thing, the system still needs to
Absolutely,
be
brother.
perfect.
Say it again.
You feel me? Like, we all fall short. So again, when you see those 3 words, I want you guys for the rest of the night, just think of those 3 words, let them linger and see, damn, how does this go with the police? Another thing, just some Cambridge news. A long-awaited database of complaints against police officers in Massachusetts was published Tuesday, a year after its deadline. The data includes 3,400 disciplinary records involving 2,100 officers accused of misconduct, ranging from not properly responding to an incident to being convicted of a crime. The data was released by the Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission, known as POST, a police oversight board created in 2020 as part of a criminal justice reform law passed only after a police officer killed George Floyd in Minneapolis. Now, a few things that stand out. Number one, the database of complaints being over a year old. Now, the police are trusted with power and they, we give them our trust and everything else. They should still be held accountable for their actions, because if one of us are late with the rent, the deadline is the 1st. We have to leave. And there's a consequence behind that. We get kicked out, get put out, constable comes and everything else. So that right there, it's like, you're abusing your authority and your power, because it's like, why aren't you held to the same standards that us citizens are held to? We have deadlines to meet and we got to make them. Same thing. Now, the other thing that stands out is the Post Commission, POST, Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. It was only created in 2020 as part of the criminal justice reform law, meaning George Floyd, if he wouldn't have got killed, we would never know about a post. The post wouldn't be created. It would never be created. And that makes you wonder, like, okay, well, what about all the other people and victims that have been victims to the police before George Floyd? So we only holding them accountable from 2020 and up because of this George Floyd thing. So it's like, if there wasn't a deceased person, George Floyd wasn't killed, the police would not be holding themselves accountable. And that's my point. If we're going to be citizens, just because you are bound under oath and everything else, that doesn't mean you have the right to kill somebody. That doesn't mean you have the right to abuse your authority. You have one of the biggest jobs in the world, kind of, in a sense. Not the president, it's you. People entrust you. You're out here on the streets engaging with community, or at least supposed to be. So your job is kind of a little bigger than the president, because he's not doing too much. You're actually out here talking, shaking hands, walking the beat and working the beat. So you need to be held to a higher expectation, and you need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna end it with that.
Thank you. Hello. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I should let you know that I'm formerly undocumented. I grew up in the projects, not too far from here. And I also have lots of relatives who've been in and out of prison, some who are still incarcerated. So I'm directly affected by mass incarceration in our criminal injustice system. And I might be confusing y'all because I'm sitting on this side of the room. But I'm only here because we lost a speaker, and so I'm filling in. So I'm an abolitionist, and so I disagree with the prompt. So rather than trying to convince you to agree with the prompt, I'm here to present a sort of realist or a pessimist position on the prompt. I have two main points. Okay. We are following the leadership of police, whether we want to or not. And the police have rigged all systems for all of us to have to work with them in some form or another. So unfortunately, I kind of do agree with the prompt. The police are leading on everything that we're talking about. I'm sorry to bring this up today, and I warn you all now. But the Cambridge Police Department murdered Arif Faisal just last year in broad daylight with multiple witnesses. And they found themselves to have followed every rule perfectly. And they've convinced the citizens of Cambridge that we, the Black Response and other abolitionist groups,
we are the ridiculous ones for saying that perhaps the rules are wrong. Maybe we should change them. Somehow that's ridiculous, and we are the ridiculous ones. I just want to point out that Faisal was a young man, a young brown man, who was having a mental health crisis, and his family called the police for help when they shot and killed him. Okay? So the police killed this young man. They've literally gotten away with murder with absolutely no consequences. If you can get away with murder with no consequences, that shows some sort of power and is proof of their leadership, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely.
The police force everyone to work with them or through them. They've rigged all systems to operate that way. I'm just going to name some examples until I'm told to get off the mic. Some of us have been here in Cambridge for a while, so we'll remember that Sandra Graham in the 80s was harassed. Her son and her family were arrested when they were trying to establish the police review board. RIP, Sandra Graham. Although there are some kind people on the police review board in Cambridge, the board is facilitated by a police supporter who works directly with Cambridge Police Department. And the police review board is not working to hold the police department accountable for the murder of Faisal. And they are not supporting us in our efforts to change the rules so that nobody gets murdered in the way that Faisal was murdered. So if we have a police review board because of the work and the efforts of people like Sandra Graham, and today, after she's passed away, that police review board is not holding them accountable, then this is how they co-opt even the institutions that we try to design to hold them accountable. The Division of Community Care in Northampton, Massachusetts, they've been working to stand up an alternative community care program. The police have had to approve every aspect of the program design throughout its development. And in doing that, they've slowed down its development and implementation, and they have yet to start responding. It's been 3 years. Somerville, just around the corner, they've spent years developing task forces and working groups towards reimagining police. And they are very likely going to expand the core program, which is literally housed across the street within the police department. And they publicly boast their collaboration with the police. So they work directly with the police. Note that I have many more examples of this, but the 2 points that I want to make are whether we like it or not, the police are leading these efforts. And we are having to fight, but we do follow. And that the police have rigged all systems so that we have to work with and through them.
Feel like we got a third teammate. So the prompts, in order to address issues of crime and violence in Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities in Cambridge and beyond, we need to follow the leadership and work in direct relationship with police and other policing institutions. It's very interesting to me because it's full of idiocracy, and it's full of a very strange nuance. And I think my opening statement and argument is that two things. I live in Texas where we burn books and change history. And I think it's important to understand first the origin of police, which some would debate is not true, but I would debate the latter, that police stem from slave patrols, right? So if police stem from slave patrols, entity that is here to police my Black body as I fight and resist against this, a racist system, and then the freeing of slaves happened, quote unquote, with emancipation, but we never quite historically had a conversation about the update and the role of policing. I think I have to question very intrinsically, then what is this thing, right? Like there was never once a recorded conversation in history around what we do with policing now that the slaves are free. I think we also have to point out that policing in its very most common form is a relatively new concept. Before emancipation, all we had was like sheriffs and stuff like that. We didn't have municipal police departments. It didn't exist. But crazy enough, as slaves were free, we started seeing the creation of police departments because we needed somebody to watch now the free slaves, because we've always heard the old folks tale that when you free the slaves, they're gonna go kill all the white people, which has not happened yet. Maybe in Haiti, but nowhere else. I think it's also important to note that legally, before I get into my opinion back throughout the conversation, legally, the police are not mandated, required by law to protect us. There was a case in 1989, DeShaney versus the Winnebago County Department of Social Services, where a mom called the police on the father that was beating his son repeatedly. He was beating this 4-year-old repeatedly. She kept calling the police. And they did little to nothing, really nothing to protect this kid. And the dad actually beat his son into comatose, and the son, and I'm not using this word incorrectly, but he beat his son into retardation. His son later died. So she sued the police because she had made multiple complaints that, I called you guys, there was restraining orders and things of this nature. She sued them. This actually went up to the Supreme Court, and I quote you from Chief Justice Rehnquist: "Nothing in the language of the Due Process Clause itself requires the state, which is the police departments, to protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens against invasion by private actors, even where such aid may be necessary to secure life, liberty, and property interests of which government itself may not deprive the individual without due process of the law." Now, some folks hear that and say, oh, this was 1989, it was a long time ago. Clearly, there has to be an update, like they got that wrong. Well, in June 27 of 2005, this came back up again in a case, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, where again, this woman called the police on her estranged husband, who was a lunatic, and actually got a restraining order against him. This man went on to kidnap his 3 sons, his 3 kids, went up to the police department and started shooting, and I think some of the kids died. They used the same case in 1989 to reaffirm their decision that states that police are not required to protect you. Sorry. So this idea that people of color who have historically been under the knees and boots of police need to work with them in order to keep them safe is equivalent to you asking your body's white blood cells to work with the cancer in its body to heal yourself. So no, the police will not keep us safe, and we do not in any way, form or fashion, need to sit at a table with people that are here to kill and police us and throw us in jails and eradicate us from this country.
Hey, thank you, everybody. So now we give it to you guys if you have questions, and I'll go by with the mic.
That was eye-opening. I always thought that they were here to protect and serve the people. Thank you for the education.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I came up here for, because again, I live in Texas, which is, I would argue, the first state in this so-called union, right behind Florida and Georgia. But, I was watching, if you get a chance to watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Donald Glover, and I can't remember the Asian American actor's name. It's a scene where he's undercover at like a spades game or something. And one of the quote unquote criminals talks about how police have this really good marketing program, right? They say these things like protect and serve because they make you feel safe. They say things like, we're here for the community and all this stuff, but legally, right? They're not here to do that. They are here to enforce the law and uphold the law, right? Like in any case where police, in any case where people might feel protected, I would argue that they only prevented a crime from breaking, right? And your safety was only a little benefit of that, a benefactor of that. But again, this idea that Black people, the people that have been most oppressed by this system, need to work with them. It's equivalent to asking the mother or the kids or, you know, the partner of a abuser to work with them so they can stop beating you, right? It's equivalent to asking a person that is like addicted to drugs to work with a drug dealer so we can, you know, cure you. It's like, no, it's just unequivocally untrue.
Anybody has another question?
I want to offer an alternative history of the development of policing, which is, I do know the narrative that policing comes from slave patrols in the South, but I want to take it back a little bit further. I'm also a socialist, so I'm an agitator in every way. And I want to offer the idea that policing is a capitalist tool. It's a mechanism of enforcement for the capitalist principle of private property.
Mic near your
Oh,
mouth.
sorry, should I repeat it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Policing is a capitalist tool. It's a mechanism of enforcement of the capitalist principle of private property. So when policing is said to be to protect and serve, it's a mechanism for protecting private property and interest of property owners. And I want to make that distinction incredibly clear because we are not the owners. And if you're not the owners, then the police are not here to protect or serve you or your interests. And we also have to keep in mind that police are one of the only institutions that exist at the municipal level that have been granted the right to use violence for its purpose of protecting and serving the interests of property owners. Thank you.
Do we have a question in the back?
Thank you so much, first of all. Sorry, yeah. I know my voice is kind of difficult to, it's kind of weird. But I would very much, sorry, could I ask your name again?
Stephanie or Danny?
Stephanie, yes, thank you, Stephanie. I was really swayed by like your sort of like, well, like we've seen what they can do and it's, oh God. But also like given the reality of the situation, they can do this because they have so much power already. So I am very convinced by that, sort of like when, as a sort of community, we are experiencing this much loss, and this much risk at all times. Like, what is the alternative, but sort of like capitulating to working with them, at least to some extent. But then in my own head, like in that hypothetical situation, it's like, if we give a little, like if you give an inch, then they take a mile. And like to what extent can we mitigate that possibility? I guess like, how do you envision the scope of this going forward? Either Stephanie or anyone else.
Thank you. You guys got that? We'll have Stephanie over here first and then, you know.
I would have to say that, it's really starts with our households. What are we teaching our kids? What are we educating our kids? What are our values? What are our true sense of self-being? And what do we stand for? There's too much fear collectively in individuals to voice opinions. There's too much fear collectively as individuals to stand up for what is right, you know? And it's not until there is an atrocity that occurs that the community steps up and bands together as the community as we should. But why should we have to wait till an atrocity occurs to be able to do that when we should be able to do it on ourselves and policing ourselves. The problem is that we don't have enough confidence within ourselves. Therefore, that fear that we feel is contagious amongst our peers and our community members. You know, just to show the point that the sister Stephanie was talking about. This season for Halloween's, one of the things that I noticed was that there was no police presence in Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, areas that they considered the red zone. But you go into areas like certain parts of South End, Beacon Street, Commonwealth Ave, and they got police presence everywhere. Certain streets blocked off, certain police detail during Halloween, right? And not to make this a racist thing, but in reality, it really is a racist thing because the majority of these property owners are white people. They're not black and brown people that own these properties. So their properties are the ones that are being protected. Their properties are the ones that are being served. In our neighborhoods, you know, after a certain time, after 7 o'clock, we telling our kids, okay, there's no more trick or treating, it's time to be in the house because it's not safe for our kids to be out there. But on Halloween, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, you got such a large volume of police presence inside these neighborhoods. So it just goes to show what the sister was talking about is 100% correct. But it stems from the fear that we all each feel collectively that we don't talk about, that we don't express, and we don't acknowledge. And that's the main factor towards the topic, the discussion that we're having today.
You don't wanna read the.
We don't, the question I was asked, kind of, we feel as though it was really geared towards that's how they answered it.
So one of the questions that I have just in responding to what you just said, in Cambridge, there's been a history of feeling that the police actually have not provided any safety within Black and brown communities, and the other communities are the ones where the police do operate. It has led to people, including a number of people from the Black community in Cambridge, saying, we want more police in our community. We deserve to have police in our communities. Why should they only police in the white communities? So given that, in fact, the police don't seem to, in fact, have the interest of Black people at all, I'm wondering how you deal with that. What's the alternative? How do we deal with the fact that some people in the Black community feel like we should have police here, we should have Black police in our own communities, that's what we should have?
Like I said in the beginning, we gotta educate our community, our peers, our family members. We gotta educate starting from within our households. You know, the internet has done two things. It's provided a large amount of information very quickly, but it's also taken away to true family morals of education that's provided from the household. You know, so in response to your question, we have to bring it back to the old school things where we're not paying so much attention to TV and the internet and to the social media, and parents in each household are actually stepping up to do what their mothers and their grandparents did generations before our generation, before the internet was created.
So I somewhat understood the question, but I would just touch on a few points as far as what you're saying. Now, I personally, I've been in rooms with, you know, African Americans, and they say, hey, yeah, no, we want more police. But now let's break it down a little further. Why do they want more police? Why do they want more police? Because Caucasians have more police. The Caucasians have property. Police are here to protect and serve the property owners. Why do we want more police just because somebody else has it, the next race has it? I personally, I don't want more police, and I'm a Black and brown person, and I'm a property owner. I don't want, because you don't serve and protect me. It's not just for me. I'm thinking about everybody. What about the Chinese folk? What about the Asian folk? What about the Indian guy? What about You don't serve and protect. And realistically, what about the white people? I have white friends and brothers that didn't come up from money and everything else and grinded for what they had and got it out the mud too. What about them? So it's not, it seems like police would only be beneficial to somebody that owns property. And there's black people own property, there's all sorts of people own property. But me personally, I don't think there needs to be any more police. I don't think anybody needs to sit down with any police until they figure out the mentality. Mentality is where it all stems from. Just like Danny just said, he's like, all right, it starts from the parents. Cool. I don't blame children for the crimes they commit because guess what? The leadership that they had in front of them, they must have lacked something for those kids not to pick it up. So we can sit here and say, oh, yeah, it's the parents, it's the house. Guess what? Who runs the house? The parent. So why aren't we looking at them and holding them accountable? Police can only do but so much. Cool. They're not here to serve and protect us. They're not here to police us. They're not here to do that. So my expectation for them is down here. My expectation for police is down there. Now, if I come across a good one, that's cool, but I still don't want any more. They don't take ethical classes. They don't take any of this stuff. The requirements for a police officer are like that. We'll get into that, but I'm hoping that it kind of somewhat answer your question. If it didn't, Ms. Virginia, you can re-ask it so we can give you a better explanation.
But I also want to add.
Go ahead, somebody, then we have another question.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna start some stuff. Let's go way back to the late 80s. Sorry, let's go back to the late 80s. What's the name? What's the Mission Hill case where they?
Charles Stewart.
Yeah. The Black communities in Boston and Cambridge were terrorized by the police departments over what turned out to be the white husband who murdered his own wife, right? The Black communities were outraged over this case. It went national, right? And then 2 years later, there's the Rodney King riots. People were outraged. And then, this is very Cambridge specific. Somebody murdered somebody's kid in the project, and it wasn't the police who did it. All of a sudden, all the outrage from institutional violence, state-sanctioned violence, shifted like amnesia to we need more police in our streets. Instead of thinking, wait, we need more resources in our streets. The police budget keeps growing every single year, and yet we have fewer and fewer affordable housing units. We have not enough job programs for young adults. Our school system is in shambles and has been, especially for how they underserve low-income and Black and brown students. I'll speak for my own family. I have a brother who can't read. He came through the Cambridge Public Schools. The amnesia is really well designed. It's part of this process. The police have done such a good job of brainwashing us in Cambridge to say, listen, all the Black people in Cambridge, we love the police. The police commissioner is a Black woman. We should support this Black woman. She is the face of an institution that harasses and imprisons families. And when we take everything else from those communities and they have no other options than to call the police every single time there's an issue, then of course we want more police, because who's going to resolve our conflicts, right? Who's going to take the violent person away from the family? Instead of thinking, who's going to resolve our conflicts that's not going to put somebody in our family in a cage? Or who's going to help my brother get a job? Who's going to help my brother learn to read? We have this amnesia, and it's by design.
Thank you. We have one more question over here.
Thank you for coming back to that, because police are for-profit entities in and of themselves, as well as the prison system. But I wanted to ask, so how do we remove community policing from the criminal justice system? And, you know, I'm a public defender, and my job is harm reduction, and at every stage, because at the end of the day, once you're arrested, it's just about, well, do you want to go to prison, or do you want to pay the state for you to show up every day and tell them something? So how, like, where do you see the system is ripe for breaking it? Do you think it happens at the community level? And if it does, how do we deal with the fact that then it's taking money away from a system that is inherently capitalist? And even though it's outrageously expensive. I don't know if that makes sense as a question, but just seeing the cyclical nature of it, especially those who have experienced it, where do you see that hopeful breaking point? Thank you.
I think, I talk about this a lot in a lot of different places. And, when I say this answer, nobody likes it, but it's true. The answer to this is, like us, like the people, right? Like, I get what my brother over there is saying, but I have to slightly push back a little bit because I don't think that the lack of family values and all this stuff is just like a natural thing. I think it's a symptom of a system that breeds individualism, that breeds competition, that breeds tribalism and all these type of things, right? So I think if we as a community can kind of lean into some of the things I heard in their intro, right? Like how do we step back and say, you know what, you stole from me, but instead of calling the cops, how about we handle this a different way, right? And there are examples of people always winning, right? Michael Moore, no relation, made this documentary, probably his best one, Where to Invade Next, where he goes to like Sweden, where it was the first democratic nation to have women in political power and leadership. Germany, they have like people, the laborers, the workers on boards and things like that. I think Norway, they have free tuition. They took it away. Every student stopped going to college till they brought it back. I think the problem in the American context is that we so readily sign up to like jump on this capitalistic hamster wheel that unknowingly we perpetuate the same systems that we are so quote unquote fed up with, right? Bell Hooks is my favorite author because she is one of the only Black women that I've met but not met that speaks to my conditioning as a Black man and doesn't blame me for it, right? She talks about how Black men are how do you as a human, but as a man that's socialized and conditioned to only be hard, like how do you actually tap into your softness, right? Because as a man, if I'm in a space with other men, I have to be hard because they're hard, and it's this protective mechanism that we all use. But to get back to your question, the answer is really we have to stop depending on a system that is inherently racist and violent in every form to also like invest in the solutions that we need. And every time I say that, people they take a pause with that because they want the government to assist community mutual aid and community care. They can't do that. Like it's literally like the anti of what the system is, right? So the moment we all collectively decide to get off the hamster wheel and start really understanding that we collectively are all we got, like literally, right? Like the moment we understand that we are supposed to be the most sentient beings on this planet, and I could probably debate against that, right? Like that we're the most sentient beings on this planet, which is a spinning rock full of water with a melting lava core, right? In a galaxy of like billions and billions of life forms. Like once you think about that enough, you really understand like, man, we really don't know, excuse my French, what the fuck we're doing. And like, I can't hold you for not also understanding this experience that we call life and really leaning into that and saying, you know what, I got you. And we have to figure this out together. Into hell with systems, into hell with labels and all these things. I think that's how we create like the things we need, which is just like this very basic understanding of care and empathy. And I'll close this on this note, right? Like I think as humans, especially today with phones and everything, we've gotten so detached, but most importantly, we stopped dreaming. Like we stopped imagining, right? Like I constantly, even though I'm a Black American and I have a very interesting relationship with this society, I constantly think of like, Buzz Aldrin, who one day went outside and looked up at the moon and was like, I'm gonna go there, right? And I'm pretty sure people's like, man, you're crazy, you're a lunatic, right? But he did it, right? So I just think that when I think about an abolitionist future, I think about a society where people can love who they want to love, where when people mess up, we don't put them in cages, we actually bring them in, where my neighbor is not hungry or deprived of like the basic needs of humanity because they don't have the jobs that deem them or label them important. And instead of calling a number to have somebody assist them, I'm gonna do it because I'm more approximate to them. That doesn't seem crazy to me. But like we have to imagine that and we have to actually believe that we can achieve that goal. You know, and that's the issue. That's why we keep relinquishing our power to police, to prisons, to all these things that, again, and you know, they will never, they cannot, they are incapable of keeping us safe.
If I just may, brother, you, man, educate, brother. That's all I can say. Hearing you speak, I don't know who that author that you was talking about, but you remind me of one of my favorite authors, Sister Soldier, and she talks about exactly what you and that brother just talked about. You know, the misconcept of the upbringing of a Black man and how we're raised to today and how we're raised to believe the things about ourselves that we weren't meant to believe about ourselves. You know, and these are the type of public conversations that we need to be having publicly, because too often, these are the conversations that brothers like you and I have behind those walls. When we sitting in the cage like a locked animal, when we sitting talking about the struggles that we really going through, and we sitting admitting the pain that we really feel, you know. But to come out that case and to come out in front of each other, there's a misconception of admitting to such truth. So my brother, I don't know you, but I know that you're a brother of God, and I respect the education that you have given us today. And I thank you.
Thank you. This is beautiful, y'all. Okay, we have one last question and then we'll continue the debate, okay?
So my question is, I'm gonna take it real micro. My children, when they were very young, they wanted to be police officers. They drove real cool cars that flashed, and they could make everybody stop, right? In the road, they had that, they could do that. Then they got a little older and everybody's employed by them. And Cambridge is the third largest employer in Cambridge. So somebody's uncle, somebody's cousin, somebody's brother-in-law, right? They have houses because they got paid by the department. They have education because like they paid for the academy, you know, you get this nice uniform, you get a cap, you get a hat. So like I hear it about the economics and I hear it about capitalism. I mean, I hear all of that. This is just playing. But it's true, right? Like I have now my kids are teens and I'm like, cut that shit. But that is a reality for a lot of people in Cambridge. And like, that's what you hear, you know, and then all of a sudden people get quiet when you ask for the budget, the police budget. And then they get quiet when you ask, why is there a military grade Jeep that's sitting at a family fair, summer fair, so that kids can climb up on the Jeep, the police military tank, right? So I just want to know that, like, what do we do then? Because our kids are looking at that statement and being like, yeah, because that's what they're socialized, that's being socialized at. So I'm curious.
Can you, so exactly what is the question?
Yes, okay. Yes, my question is, like, what I just said supports that statement, because that's what we're doing, right? We are leaning in and following the leadership and like being directed and being in partnership. Like everything tells our kids that that's what they should do.
police, basically.
That the police, that yes, that our schools, not just the police, like everybody wants to have kumbaya. So I'm just curious, like that, the way we function supports that statement, as Stephanie was saying. And so I'm just curious, what do I tell my kid?
So I tell kids, I have a son, I tell my son, do what you want to do. No, don't let anybody else tell you, do what you want to do. But as a child, we all used to want to be cops. We all used to run around, oh, fireman this, fireman that. As we get older, we say, okay, I might not want to do this, but that comes through how many factors, though, how many variables play a part in changing my mind on being a police. How many times do I see as I'm getting older, starts from 3, oh, I'm in a car, beep, 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 beep. As I'm getting older, oh, shoot, daddy just got pulled over by the police for nothing. Now I'm 10, oh, shoot, mom just got harassed by the cops. He frisked her crazy and it was disrespectful. Okay, now all of that is going out of my head. I no longer want to do any of this. I don't want to see it. I don't want to do it. But then ask yourself this, who controls the media? When we see police and we see positive things of police, it's like, okay, I want to be that. Police have money. I want to be that. Nobody highlights the drug dealer. Forget the drug dealer. Nobody highlights the working 9 to 5 individual that's successful in doing more than the cops. Cops, like right now, they're under a lot of scrutiny because there's no way that a police officer is making $300,000 annually. I would want to be a cop too. If I could change that, I'd be like, yeah, let me be a cop. $300,000 to do nothing, and these aren't even cops that's walking on the beat. So it's like, I can agree to a sense, but it's like, what image? Look at the image that's put, like you just said. You're like, yeah, they're in Cambridge. I don't come out here often, but I know Cambridge is a nice place. I don't see the need for too many police out here. This is just my perception of Cambridge. So it's like, we cross the bridge, like people in Cambridge call us boss, say, oh yeah, you're going over the bridge, da, da, da. That's the little thing. It's like, when I come out here, I feel protected, I feel safe. And it's not because of the police, it's because of my environment. It's populated by a lot of white people, a lot of Asian people. I can go to coast or the port and go over there and be like, oh shit, it's different over here. Yeah, because of the environment of where I'm at. This part right here, the only thing I'm worried about realistically is the cop saying, hey, come here, your car's dirty. You like something like that. I'm not worried about nothing else because I know where I'm at. It's not too much going on, but it's a lot of that stuff be the media. There's nothing wrong with being a police. I just feel as though we shouldn't keep employing so many if they're doing nothing.
Go ahead. And then after that, we're gonna go to rebuttals.
I have 2 things to say. The first thing is I gotta call my mom into the space. She's not here because I didn't do my hair, but people who know her. But some of us were here when Jeffrey Curley was kidnapped and murdered.
Yep.
Yeah. When Jeffrey Curley was kidnapped and murdered, and the police ran this campaign where they were fingerprinting children and taking pictures for this like national database. I was undocumented at the time, and that nearly gave my mom a heart attack, and she almost pulled us out of school. Okay, so I bring her into the space just because we know how the police operate, and this is what they do. They take advantage of these crises so that they can collect information about us. And then they have fingerprints of like my brother. And so when they arrest him 10 years later, they have all his shit on file from years and years before because they took advantage of my mom's fear, other people's mother's fear. My brother wasn't undocumented, just me and my sister. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there. But to your point, what I think I understood about your question was, you made my point for me, but the police has an employment program. So just to be the third member of their team really quick, it's complete BS that we have to say the police are the 3rd biggest employers in Cambridge. And they're the largest employers of the lowest income populations in Cambridge. So we got to think about that. The police should not be an employment program. And it goes back to the brainwashing that they have so successfully done in our communities that we don't have access to an imagination and to an education system that can teach us that there are so many more opportunities than to become a person who snitches and incarcerates their brothers and sisters. I think we have to really think about that. Growing up, I was poor. I'm still kind of poor, but I was poorer. And my mom couldn't afford after school, so we used to just hang out at the library. And one day I met this man who was pulling a book, and the book said project management. And I was like, what's that? The guy sat down and explained to me what a project manager was. It was the first time I'd ever heard of that as a job. And so randomly I would go up to these white people who were pulling random books at the library, and I'd be like, what do you do? And that's how I expanded my realm of possibility, that there are way more jobs in the world than hairdresser, police officer. Like, my world is really small. But asking people what they do, that was a game changer. And then eventually I got to ask them, how did they get to do it? If we were teaching kids about all the possibilities and how to get there and actually taking them to those places, then we wouldn't need to spend so much money on having policing as the employment program. We can continue with rebuttal. Sorry, that's the last.
So I really don't have a rebuttal, to be honest. Like, you know, I think this has been a debate of education, of, you know, of being able to be educated from more than one point of view. You know, I don't have a rebuttal because I've been inspired and I've been educated, you know, as much as I participated inside this discussion. I'm leaving here tonight more inspired and more educated on the topic, you know, because my statements were of self-opinion, of self-injustices that I felt. But to hear the responses of my fellow brothers, you know, they come from the same walk of life, they come from the same struggle. This is just another education, you know, so there isn't a rebuttal.
I kind of feel, I can understand what Danny said. I just wanted to state a few facts. My only rebuttal, not necessarily a rebuttal, but when my brother said about the social media. Now, I know a few people who aren't too bright, but they own a smartphone. So therefore, there's no reason for any of us to lack certain stuff. I say that to say this. Social media is a very, very powerful tool. Why? Because that's what brought me here today. I didn't see no flyer. I don't know anything that's going on, and I wouldn't be here today. Now, how you use social media, that's on you. It's just like somebody, oh, guns aren't good. Guns aren't good. No. There's a class and a training that you have to take before you can even own a gun or go near one. Same thing with social media. How you utilize social media is on you. I use it for a different thing, positive thing. Just like Stephanie said, hey, what do you do? I get on social media and ask everybody what they do. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? How can I connect? How can I do this? How can I do that? And at the same time, when people get on social media, the first thing it says, what do you feel today, or how do you feel? And that's when everybody lets it go. Everybody get on But it shows you a lot about people as well, because I go on little groups where they say all racist stuff, and I say, damn, let me see which one of them is my employer. You see what I'm saying? So now it's even scarier because it's like, damn, same talking about police. Some of these people that's leaving these negative comments towards my kids, whoever, they're police, they're officials. The same people who we're talking about today looking towards leadership. These are the same people in those groups. Oh, F this and this and that. The true colors come out on social media. I use it for a tool because I'm going to see the true you. At the same time, it's the internet. It's social media. Be social. Speak. A lot of people don't do that. They hide behind a keyboard and be a thug. Let me be a keyboard gangster. Instead of communicating. People still don't know how to communicate on social media. They still don't know how to be social on a social platform. You see what I'm saying? So it's dangerous if you don't know how to use it. It's anything. The mind is dangerous if you don't know how to use it. If you don't know how to think and train your mind, you might crash out and now you're back doing 10 again. So it's all the same. All that stuff comes with a manual. It's up to you to write. It's up to you to write that. I mean, okay, I'm not going to be doing thug this, I'm not gonna be doing that, I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm not getting on social media talking about people's mom. I'm asking, hey, when's the next event that I can come and speak at? Hey, when's the next event that these kids is going here to do that? So it'll be different. Then the parent, a lot of times we been talking about family. There is no more 5 p.m. dinner time because the housing market is way too expensive for somebody to come home at 5 o'clock. No, I have to do overtime. I'm not getting home till 9 o'clock. So therefore, that's out the way. Rent's still sky high, so how am I bringing food? This is taking me away from my family. So how am I to do anything with these kids? I can't even pass no knowledge on to my family because we're not having 5 o'clock dinner. That's not going on. Why? Because the market is too high for me to live. I can't make it. $15, that's not a livable wage. I'm 37 years old. I feel as though you should be, whatever your age, you should be getting that paid in order to live and take care of your family. We're in Massachusetts, so it's like, it's different. A lot of that stuff that we're thinking, like, oh, yeah, the family, it has to do with that. But the family has to realize the time that we're in now. This isn't the 80s. This isn't the 90s. This is 2024. We got to find new ways to adapt and connect to these kids. Number one, we got to stop blaming them. If the dinner time and all that other stuff is what we looking for, that's up to the family, to the head of the household. The kid's not the head of the household. The kid is a child, and that's why a lot of violence is going on now, because we pressing them to be adults. We pressing them to be adults. Little Tiana is not a babysitter at 7 years old. But why is she forced to do that? Because of the environment she's in. Mom, dad got to work, has to provide. The same thing. But guess what? You got cops and everybody else, they get that big bag. And they're not even serving and protecting. Doesn't make sense. But that was my only rebuttal as far as like with the social media. I think we just gotta use it to our advantage, just, utilize it the right way.
Hello, okay. I wrote down a bunch of things, so I'll just talk until Lorenzo tells me to stop.
Gotcha.
Okay, I don't think we should be focusing on individual police officers. So this was way back at the beginning of this discussion. It doesn't matter if one individual police officer is a nice person, because that's not the point. The institution corrupts. And I also want to go back to the job program thing. I went to Ringe with 3 people who became police officers, and none of them had ever said that they were interested in becoming police officers. They all became police officers from what they told me. Is after their girlfriend got pregnant and they needed to figure out where they were going to live and how they were going to take care of their family, and they didn't know what else to do, and it was the only thing that was hiring. So I don't want to talk about the individuals because that's not the point. The point is the institution, and that institution creates harm. They are armed with tools that harm. Even if that harm comes with pizza slices and basketball games before it. Because that's just a mechanism for disarming people so they forget that the police are going to harm them, and collecting information about them. So that when they do arrest them, that they have even more information to keep them in prison longer. So that's the first thing. And I 100% agree with you, Tati. I should be over there. The fight that we're talking about is way different than dismantling individual police departments or talking about individual police officers. For that, we need to create completely different institutions. This is an opportunity for us to argue for socialist institutions, dismantling the entire institution, the entire system, so that we can have people who work full-time, fully housed, so that they can spend time with their families. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, I'll skip the other things. I think the most important thing is to go back to the position that I'm in, which is, I don't agree with the statement on principle, but I do see the statement as being the case for where we are. I think I'm using a sort of critical race theory lens to analyze the situation. And I see this system, as long as we're in a capitalist system, this policing institution is fixed. And that's a core tenet of critical race theory. And I hold that to be true. And in order for us to figure out how to dismantle this really harmful system of policing, we need to think about interest convergence. And interest convergence in critical race theory is when there's a nexus point where all the sides agree that this particular institution needs to change. If we can't get the police department to change the policy of not shooting to kill someone who's having a mental health crisis when they're not even armed, how do we get to interest convergence? We're fucked. Excuse my language. And so we are still left in the same situation that we are in now, where we're following behind the police and that this institution is a fixed one. I'm an abolitionist, so part of my work is to continue to dream up a way to fight this system and dismantle it. But I am realist. I'm a realist in that I am looking at the situation as it is. And unfortunately, this is what I see.
Just two quick rebuttals because I do think words are important. She touched on one. I think it's really important to note that there may be good people, but there is no such thing as a good cop. The system is too corrupt. It's too overtly racist and just bad. I grew up watching Family Matters with Carl Winslow, thinking like, oh, this is all right. But if you watch more episodes, that same police department that he was a good cop in was another. It was more cops that pulled his son and racial profiling, right? So there's no such thing as good cops, and I really think it's important that we use language to criticize and critique the system and call it what it is, which is overtly racist and corrupt. And then the last slight rebuttal challenge is that I can understand why we feel like there's a lack of family values and 5 o'clock dinners and stuff like that. I think he touched on that, but I think it's also important to understand that the absence of those do not excuse the presence of police harm nor justify it, right? So I think that, yes, there are some things we need to do on a community level, especially in Black and brown neighborhoods that have been deeply oppressed by these systems, but that doesn't give authority to these cops to do what they do. I'll leave it at that so we can get slightly back on track.
Thank you so much, everybody. Well, we're going to open it up for more questions. Anybody has a question?
Hi, I'm from Michigan and I know nothing about Cambridge. I'm just here because I like to argue with Chaz. So what do you say to politicians who believe that we have to save law enforcement because we need a large-scale solution to violence? And that the very community that you seek to protect, BIPOC communities, are inherently the minority. They are, I believe I was told earlier today in the lunch, 11% or something of Cambridge, 13% of the country. And let's be real about where hatred, right, and sources of large-scale violence are rooted right now. I don't know if I'm the only one who saw the January 16th riots on the Capitol, but maybe the Black police commissioner is thinking who is supposed to protect when the Ku Klux Klan or whoever comes through to kill off all the Black people. And let's be honest, because genocide happens today. I'm sure we all know where it's happening right now in a number of places. But who is to argue, I'm sorry, Stephanie, I'm just gonna be the affirmative for you. What do you say to the fact that in your abolitionist future, Chad, there needs to be a body that doesn't just stop the dad from hitting the child or this one singular anecdote where a crime is happening where it's a one-on-one person and you call someone's family. Maybe there is a large-scale threat to public safety, and who in your abolitionist future quashes that threat and protects that minority or that underdog when the current institution is so corrupt that you believe that underdog community is being detrimentally impacted or harmed? Because who's coming to save Black folks if there's no law enforcement at all?
That goes to the statement that I said earlier, sister. It takes one atrocity to happen for the community to come together, to band together as a community. Okay? Until those type of atrocities happen, they're just individual opinions. They're just individual statements, and these public discussions that we're having right now are not held in the public. They're held behind closed doors. but these opinions and statements are not heard. So therefore, they don't matter other than the 2 years that they're hearing them.
This is my favorite type of question as an abolitionist, because we live in such a popcorn microwave and like I need it right now society, to where we don't want to take the time needed to build what we need to build, right? I am innately aware that the society I'm talking about is more about undoing and repairing the harm of the current system before we can even build a new, right? And there, I mean, we across the bridge. I've been hearing y'all say that. I guess that's a thing. But I would bet the last $2 on my bank account that when the Boston massacre happened, that although we had first responders, some of them were police, after that, it was the community that was looking out for one another. I just want to make that bet. I think after 9/11, there were first responders that went to the scene, but nationwide, there were communities, churches, that opened up their doors and said, if you need to talk, if you want to do this, you want to do that, I'm here for you. Time and time again, we as people, when the moments of atrocities happen, that's when we realize how small we really are, and how big we are when we come together, right? So I think in those moments, I think that label that we're the smartest creatures on the planet is something I can believe in those moments, because time and time again, people, and to be quite honest, women of color, queer folks of color, like we got to think about the Stonewall riots, right? Like that was when that community banded together. We band together in crisis. I think the problem is, the issue is that we don't band together on a more consistent basis on a regular fucking day, right? I think the problem is that when people ask you how you're doing, we have been socialized to say, oh, I'm fine. When quite literally, like you are depressed, like you hate the day you had, you didn't want to go to work, but you had to, like, when we decide that we want to remove the veil of filters and this hypocrisy of like everything has to be okay all the time, and when we open up opportunities to be vulnerable with one another in a very deeply intimate way, and allow people time to process their emotions and their feelings, right? Because also we live in a society to where when people ask you how you doing, like they need to know right now, like, again, I'm a 36-year-old man that just found out what sadness actually meant 2 days ago, right? I'm actually finding out that I'm still dealing with the fact that my mom died when I was 7, because I didn't have the emotional color wheel at the time, right? And as a man, I'm only afforded to be hungry, angry, or full of rage. So I think we have to understand that, one, it's going to take time, and I know people don't like that answer because I hear her with the most vulnerable populations. I get that. But I have to believe, I must, not only politically, because it's where I stand, that if we take the time needed to really analyze where this harm is coming from, we can then produce the results needed, right? And I'll wrap up because I know we get into closing arguments, but like this idea that people are like innately evil is something that I wrestle with a lot, but I just don't agree with, right? I think a lot of us commit harm as a trauma response, right? There's a book by Daniel Serrett, And So We Reckon, and she talks about their initiative in Brooklyn, Common Justice, where they actually convince people to pull out of the historical context of accountability, which is the criminal legal system, right? They ask people to, instead of doing that, come work with us, we'll get you the accountability that you crave, while simultaneously keeping that person out of a system that is only going to perpetuate and produce more harm, right? So there are examples of this, but again, the idea, and to go back to answer your question, ma'am, in the green sweater, is that the reason that Black communities, impoverished communities ask for more police, because the question is, what do you want to do to produce public safety? But also the answers that they only give us is more police, better police, community policing, right? So when you say we want community initiatives, it's not even an answer choice, right? That is something that we collectively from Cambridge to Grand Rapids to Austin, Texas, have to build the political education needed and really the social education needed to really critically understand that Black, white, queer, whatever, you're quite literally all I got. And yes, harm is going to happen as we continue to dismantle the current system we have, but the way we address it is going to be different. And we are going to continue to practice care and this empathy as much as we can until there is not a need to reproduce harm in the least bit. And then the last thing is, and I just fucking believe this because I'm a Capricorn and people should listen to me, is that if you give people the things they need, right? If you give people food and shelter and this sense of dignity, I guarantee you the harm that we see in our communities will reduce. Chicago is not Chicago because these kids have nothing else to do. It's because their schools have been stripped of resources, their parents have been stripped of jobs and human dignity, and like they don't have access to clean and healthy food. They're eating junk food all the time, so they quite literally have brain rots, right? So if we invest in our communities, right, and not so much in billion-dollar police departments, I guarantee you, just like Cambridge, just like any rich town USA, where you see healthy, thriving neighborhoods, the crime is minimum to zero. Right? So if you take the opportunity to take $1 billion, $100 million from a police department that is intrinsically designed to cripple you as a Black person, as a woman, as a queer person, and invest that money into you and your community, there is no harm to be committed because you need money. Right? But again, that's a bigger picture that we don't have time to have this here today. And I'm an abolitionist, right? People always want us to have the answers. And I'll be the first abolitionist to tell you that I don't have them. It's going to collectively take all of us to come to the table to build the future. Because if I had, the magic pen to build the future of tomorrow, I would be at home playing Call of Duty with my friend from Boston back there, right? And eating tacos all day. But it's not up to me because I don't have all the information and knowledge to build this community of care that we need. That takes all of us. That takes all of us. That takes all of us.
I want to just say one thing to answer your question. Piggyback off my partner said, I'm gonna give you a straight answer. Who's going to help the streets, basically? My company is called Boston Street Union. So the streets is coming out the streets. Just like he just said. Same thing, I'll bring up something we all might be familiar with. I'm sitting here looking at it now. Founded in 1966, that was the Black Panther Party. Mm-hmm. What was their objective? What did they do? They was for the streets. They was for the people. And it's the same, it's no different what's gonna take on that. The same thing. So that is the answer for you. If that answers your question.
May I ask well, unfortunately, we are running out of time. I know this conversation, we can stay here all night. Sorry, but we do have to continue. That sounded like a closing remark, but we will do closing remarks now, and then we will continue the program. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll leave it up to you guys for closing remarks.
Thank you. Policing as an institution is fixed. It's here to stay, whether you like it or not. And actually, before I get to that point, I just want to say Cambridge is not perfect. Just go to Central Square, Harvard Square, LA, and go ask the people surviving this housing crisis in the cold of February, and they will tell you how fucked up this place is. Okay, sorry. Back to the point. The point. Policing is a drain on the public purse, and the public purse comes from our tax dollars. And yet, they have made us addicted to policing by design. They have made it so that we are so scared to dream up of something different that we can't even consider that there should be something else that addresses the root causes of harm except for police. We're addicted to the police.
Yeah.
I really loved what you were saying about the police being a for-profit institution. And so when I say that the police are a drain on the public purse, here are some examples of that. Did you know that the Cambridge Police Department charges businesses when they are called to resolve incidents? Formerly incarcerated people pay for their e-incarceration, they pay for parole officers, they pay restitution charges. And yet we continue to drink the Kool-Aid because they say to us that there is crime, so we need more money. There's no crime, or there's low crime. We did it, so you should give us more money as a reward. Even here, after they murdered Faisal, we've murdered someone, so we need more money. And we need that money for cameras, training, to pay the families. They keep draining the resources from the community, and yet we keep increasing that police budget instead of working towards something different. And the fact that we can't seem to come together to work towards changes in a completely different world illustrates that, unfortunately, it's true. The police are the leaders and we are following them. And there's nothing else I can say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I stand on, as the young folks say, business by saying, the police, they just can't keep us safe. Working with them will not keep us safe. You can go back to the 80s, to the 90s, right after Rodney King reforms. You can go to the 92 Crown Bill reforms. You can go to the war on drugs, where we were working with the police to keep drugs off the street, but somehow the state was putting the drugs in the communities. So it's this big paradox of things never working. To most recently, young activists, Black Lives Matter, many of us, even me, wrongly saying, oh, if we had body cameras, that would keep us safe. Body cameras only produce the access to watch Black and brown bodies be killed and murdered, right? We say if we train them better, they'll stop killing us. That has only led to last year, 2023, being the deadliest year for police countries ever, right? Only second behind the year before, 2022, right? So we've seen millennia and centuries and decades of police reform, people sitting in rooms with police. We watched the Carl Winslow propaganda. We watched the Bill Banks judgaganda, and like these things just don't work. My closing statement is this, and even with the last question that was asked, like people make it seem so beyond. Like quite literally, we are all we got. When we are willing to collectively organize and collectively struggle and use our power as people, and not just citizens of the country, but as residents of this earth, right? Residents of these towns and municipalities that many of us as Black and brown people have built, we can then understand that heroes do not wear badges, that they don't wear fucking guns, that they don't have lights on their car, that quite literally the heroes are the people that wear their hats, that have on their boots, that have on their green sweaters. The heroes are the people that I call my neighbor. The heroes are the teachers. The heroes are the people that when I go to the grocery store and I ask for help, like they assist me or they give me the directions when I'm lost. Those are the heroes, right? The heroes are the people that we are in community with. How can people keep you safe when they don't even live in the zip code in which they patrol? This is true of police all around the country. Like you have police officers that live in San Antonio and Bastrop. So they can't relate to the issues of our school board meetings because their kids are not in the same schools. They can't relate to the issues of food deserts because they don't live in them. But we're asking these same people that are outside of our community to keep our community safe. Again, that's equivalent to asking the white blood cells to ask and partner with the cancer in the body to please heal me and keep me safe. It can't be done.
Close the statement. they ask, who should we follow? Because it's obviously not the police, right? But you guys are looking at us, and some of us don't have a college education. Some of us don't have the training that a lot of police officers do. And some of us don't have the financial upbringing that a lot of police do, right? Well, who's really out in our communities making the difference with our children nowadays? It's people like me. It's people like this brother right here. People like this brother right here. People like my brother that came in over there. That runs his own program. Individuals that are past gang members. Individuals that have gone through the system. They've gone through the feds. They've gone through upstate. They know what it is to be in the belly of the beast. They know what real slavery is. Because that's what our penitentiaries are, modern day slavery. When you talk about who you follow those that are making a difference in the community. Not those that are judged by a Corby that defines, that says that this is who we are, a violent person, criminal. Because my Corby doesn't define who I am today. My Corby doesn't define why I go out day in and day out inside these streets in this community doing what I do since 2017 out of pocket. Because the city and those financial entities that are out here that have the money to make a difference, they don't support small organizations like mine. They don't support small organizations like that brother in the back. They don't support the work that we're really doing in the streets. People in society talk about doing the work, but the work for individuals like us isn't a 9 to 5. This isn't a lifestyle. This is our real way of living. My phone rings constantly, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning by returning citizens that come home from the feds, from state. Yo, D, I need somebody to talk to. I need this help. Can you go to court for me? Can you help me get a job? Can you help me write a resume, cover letter? I don't get paid for none of that. I've been doing this since 2017 out of pocket. So when you guys in the community asking, who do you follow? We're the people that need to be followed because we're the ones out there really making the difference. That's my closing statement.
So I know it's been like 2 hours. I appreciate y'all. Ain't nobody go to sleep yet. I just want to give you guys, I just want to bring up something because I wasn't able to bring it up. It's part of my closing. Some of you guys may be familiar with it, some of you may not. There's some Cambridge history in my closing. 2018, Harney was among 4 officers criticized for the forcible arrest of a Black Harvard student, sparking national outcries and allegations of police brutality. A video of the incident shows officers tackling and punching the student in an attempt to restrain him. I just wanted to put that out there because that's one of Cambridge's finest. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys may know about that. And then another thing, I'm going to read a few names on this one. Some of you guys may know who they are. Tyra Nichols, Memphis. Keenan Anderson, Los Angeles. Leonie Finlayson, California. Ricky Cobb, Minnesota. Tamon Kenneth Wilson, Bay Area. Isidro Sierra Castillo, Texas. That's the first list of names that I named. Those people were all killed by police last year. Now, the next names that I read, it's a little different. Danny Santana, Jamal Warren, Joseph Bennett, Donnie Lee, Leslie Creddle, Sean K. Ellis. Some of you probably heard of these people. You guys don't even know if you're in the room with someone. My point is saying, those people that I just named were all people that were incarcerated. 3 of those people that I named are in this room. 3 of those people in this room own their own business and advocate for youth and kids, the same thing that we're talking about now. I say that to say this, you can look up their quarries and everything else, nothing unethical due to the factors and the environment that we came from. Nothing unethical. Then at the same sense, when I read the thing about Harney, who beat up a black kid who's in Harlem, what my brother was saying earlier, citizens don't get, that black kid was a citizen, a Harvard student. And it's like, damn, should we go this way with this cop? Because Harney actually was charged for giving out information from the police station on people, which means like, we trust you. You just broke that trust by passing out these reports. And I go to say this, somebody brought up snitching earlier. It goes to tell you this. You're passing out information on people that's locked up. You want somebody to testify and tell, and you're going to pass out that information. Not once did we bring up, are the police responsible for some of these deaths? Do you think they don't go to the streets and say, hey, yeah, this guy told on you, Because guess what? With more murders and more deaths, everybody stays employed.
Yeah.
Everyone stays employed. So when you think about this leadership, I want you to really think about, like, hold on. These are the same people that I have kids. A lot of you have kids, grandkids, and everything else. Who's to say that your grandkids or daughter, whatever, won't go have a mixed baby? Put that in your head. Put that in your head. These black, brown babies, the mixed babies, what about them? They gotta go through the same struggles that full black baby done went through. So it's the same thing. When you look towards leadership, you have to think about that future too. It's where it's like, damn, I got grandkids, I have kids, I have to think about stuff like that. But again, we can't, like Danny just said, your past, your Corey, that doesn't define you. And that's a lot of reasons that's what holds us guys like us back from getting these good jobs with the youth, BYS, because of Corey's. But guess what? We out here putting in the work. We do, like he said, our phones keep ringing. We don't get paid the 9 to 5. Our shit don't cut off. People call 24 hours, 1 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? I got to pick up that phone because this kid might be ready to hang himself. He may be ready to kill somebody. And guess what? I feel blessed that they called me to talk to him first. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to close with that. Thank you, guys.